to post on the YouTube channel. And before we get started, I don't know how much we're going to get through this lecture. We're going to try, but I've got a lot of other things I want to talk about, and we'll cover some things first. But when we get to it today, we're going to talk about another mutable, complex, built out of other things type in Python called dictionaries. Now, first things first, and is priorities. Don't worry about the slide that's up right now. I want to talk to you for just a couple of minutes. I've been hearing from a number of students concern about ability to learn the material online and stress this is causing, and I'm going to get a bad grade, and this is a problem. I want to try to reassure you and give you some support there. Okay, we understand. I get it. You did not sign up for online education. This is far beyond your control. You did not sign up to have to use however many different tools we're making you to use on this class. I mean, I've lost track. There's Slack, there's WebEx, there's Blackboard, there's GitHub, there's Discord, there's probably some others I've forgotten right now. You didn't sign up to learn how many tools you could use just for one class. This is not ideal for any of us. What I'm trying to get across is our goal is for you to learn this material. Our goal is for you to learn the enjoyment of programming a computer. Our goal is not to cause you to stress out about you're going to lose a scholarship or you're going to have to drop the class because it's going to kill your grade point average and you're not going to get into grad school. Please don't worry about that. Focus on learning the material, and hopefully, if at all possible under these circumstances, try to have a little fun. I understand it's not the way we all wish it could be. I control the grades for this class. It's my decision. It would be wrong of me to tell you that nobody who tries is going to get worse than a B. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that I control the grades, and I'm not interested in giving anybody a bad grade because they didn't cope well when something completely unforeseen happened. Please focus on learning material, focus on doing the best you can, focus on deriving some benefit from this class, and above all, focus on taking care of yourself first. That is most important. We get it. You didn't sign up for this. Nobody did. We're going to try to do the best we can to get you through this material, and we fully understand the impact it's having on you. So please, please, please don't worry about the impact of, an ability to get this program to work and what it's going to mean for grad school. Okay, that should be about number 9,000 on your list of priorities in today's environment. So I want to do whatever I can to let you know we're going to support you. We're going to get you through this. Nobody's going to get any pleasure out of giving somebody a low grade. Okay, we're just not going to do that. Not going to do that. We understand what you're going through. Okay? That is the first thing I wanted to get across. Okay? We're here. We'll help what we can. And please don't worry about grades. Being said, I've had a number of questions, and I want to walk you through some of this awful number of tools we're making you learn for this class under the circumstances. I know there are a number of people who have asked about office hours. Now, not my choice, but the tool of choice for office hours is Discord. Now, when let me put it this way. You should have received an invite that would give you the credentials you need to join the office hours Discord. When you log on to Discord, you will see a screen that looks something like this. It won't look exactly like this because I have the faculty view and you have the student view, but it's going to look pretty similar. Okay. If you did not get an invite, or if you didn't respond and your invite is expired or whatever, let me know. I can generate a new invite for you and we can put you on there. It's similar to Slack in a number of ways in that it has channels that you can post messages and connect to. The key is this, okay, if you just want to write a question, I'm in the students area right now, and for example, there's a category called general that I'm in right now. Okay, general is for general questions. If you have a question about homework, if you have a question about availability, if you have a question about something else, post it here and people will respond to your question as soon as they have a chance. And then every student can see, in case there's somebody else who's had the same question. So that's a general area for posting questions. Please be mindful of the fact that the majors sections have their project one, which is slightly different from yours. Well, no, it's really different from yours. Theirs is due Friday night. So they're all kind of in a mode of panic getting their programs done. So you see some questions, it'll cause some issue. Don't worry. Don't get too wrapped up around other things. So as I said, this is a place where you can post questions. In terms of getting direct help from TAs, you would go down to this channel, which is called Waiting Room. When you go into Waiting Room, there's a bot that manages this and files, keeps the line of who's next. You enter a message, which is just an exclamation point file followed by request. That is your way of indicating you want to talk to a TA or rarely a professor. It's mostly TAs, but occasionally the faculty is on here. And it will be served by whichever TA is there. Typically, office hours are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Every now and then we have a problem covering them because all the TAs have class, in which case it'll be you'll have to wait in the queue. It might be a little bit. You can see some of the messages. Apologies. We couldn't get any coverage for about 20 minutes between 2 and 2:30. But this is what you do. You go into the waiting room, exclamation point request, and whichever TA is on at that point will respond when you come up with the queue. Your TAs, Anna is on from 11:30 to 12:20 on Tuesdays. Jordan is on from 4 to 4:50. You're typically 5 o'clock on Tuesdays. They also have other office hours, so they are also on at other times. You can ask them what time they might be available. The other TAs can help you as well. So in terms of office hours, this is what you do. I realize, as I said, it's not ideal because this is not the same tool we're using for something else. But this is how you do it. If you need an invite, I can invite you immediately. Just let me know and I'll get to it as quickly as I can. The other channels, tech support, you post something if you're having a problem you can't hear. This thing does have a voice capability. It's not necessarily all typing and chat. You can share screens, you can talk. So if you're having problems, you post something in tech support, and memes is just somebody likes to put cute things on there about what you're going to look like when you come out of quarantine. So in the general area, as I said, there's a number of other things, and Dr. Johnson posts his class videos. So if you don't want to just look at mine on YouTube, Dr. Johnson posts his YouTube channel there as well. This is what office hours look like. Okay, if you think you need more help than just a general office hours question, I posted a note on Blackboard, sorry, yet another tool, from the Academic Success Center. CompSci 201 is considered a freshman, sophomore level class because you can take it in your freshman year. So they do offer formal tutoring sessions. Apologies if I can speak this would be better. The Academic Success Center does offer formal tutoring sessions for CompSci 201. On the Blackboard under announcements, there is the direction on how to do that. Contact the Academic Success Center and they will set you up with a 30 or 60-minute direct tutoring session on specifically Comp Sci 201. So if you need more formal tutoring, please, that's what they're there for. That's what they're paid to do. They will do that as well. And of course, you can contact me and I will get around as quickly as I can to it. I'm as swamped as everybody else. I apologize. I can't get to everything, but I do try. So that is what office hours looks like in the chat. It is the Discord server. You can also post questions in the Slack channel, and I try to get to them. I'm notified whenever somebody posts something new in Slack. I might be in a meeting, but if I'm not in a meeting, I will try to get to it and clarify things. One of the things that came up in Slack, and I want to get to right now, is clarifying what Project One is. I did a bad job Monday during the questions at the end of the lecture clarifying, and I realized that. And so what I want to do now is go over Project One and clarify, answer any questions you have about what it is you're expected to do. Now, the version, Anna reminded me yesterday, the version of the assignment on Blackboard is the old one with all the errors in it. Please don't use the one in Blackboard. I'll try to take that off or update it or whatever. The one in GitHub, which is labeled version 3, is the current version. Also in that same repo on GitHub are the four data files and the skeleton of the design document. Let's go through this and see if I can clarify this. I tried to answer some questions on Slack. If I didn't do it there, we'll get it now. Okay. This version of the assignment is actually, it's just a capture of a Microsoft Word file with changes highlighted. I converted to PDF so you can see what changes I made. This was a Notion. The data files are on the GitHub. The original assignment, because I tried to rush things through real quickly, told you to go to Dr. Susan Mitchell, who's a retired faculty member, files to get the data. No, that was wrong. And of course, I didn't fix it. Oh, yeah. So these are the examples. Design document. I corrected the file name for that, where it is. And it's page 10 where the details start coming. Okay. 12 functions is a typo. I apologize. Most of you have caught that. There are 8 functions listed, not 12. That 12 is just a typo. I have no clue why I did that. These files, these functions kind of tell you what you want to do. And the key are these functions right here on page 10 of the assignment. Now, this create lists right here is the core of the assignment, other than reading in files and processing. For each student, you have 3 project grades, Project 1, Project 2, Project 3, out of 80. You also have 3 exam grades, Test 1, Test 2, Test 3. Maximum possible grades happen to be 75, 125, and 200, but that turns out not to be important. What you should do is for each student, you sum the 3 project grades and you sum the 3 test grades. Then this function returns 2 lists. List 1 is a list of the sums of the project grades. List 2 is the sums of the 3 test grades. Now, I did mention on Monday that if you're comfortable enough with 2D lists, which we just covered, you can do this all as one list. Unless you really want to take that leap, just return 2 lists. So you do not have to do the mean of each project. You do not have to do the mean of each test. You just have to do the mean of the sums of the 3 projects and the mean of the sums of the 3 test grades. I realized the assignment wasn't clear. The next function, calc values, is part of the problem, says calculate the mean, median, mode, and standard deviation of each of the project scores and the exam scores. I apologize, that is not clear. You do not have to calculate the mean of project 1, the mean of project 2, the mean of project 3, and so on. You have to calculate the mean of the project, the mean of the total project scores, and the mean of the total exam scores. So only two means: some of the projects, some of the exams for each of the 4 classes. Okay, so there's 2. Apologies, yeah, each of the project scores was not clear, and I didn't help Monday evening when I talked about that. I hope that makes that clear. Some of the projects for each student, some of the tests for each student. Calculate the mean, median, standard dev, only those sums. That's all you have to do. So let me stop right now. Any questions? Has that helped to clarify what you have to do in this assignment?
Possibly see that. Or this was recorded, I can go back to it, I guess.
I'm sorry, what did you want me to do?
I was trying to see if you could just write it out, but you have this recorded, I can go back to it.
Yes. Yes, this it takes a few hours depending on WebEx, but this is going to be recorded and it will be posted on my YouTube channel later tonight. So that will be. I'll tell you what. Let me bring up a blank document.
Professor?
Yes.
So the calc values function, will that have the individual functions for calculating each like calculating the mean and median and mode? Like, will that have the individual functions within it?
They will not be within it. They can be called from it. This is the case where your one function can call another function. And so what will happen is from that function, you will, within that function, you will call those mean and median and what have you functions.
Professor? So quick question. So knowing this information, my design document is going to be completely different. Can I submit a second revision to it?
You can, but remember I made it, or I hope I made it clear, apologies if I didn't. There's going to be no penalty if your code is different from your design. I know if you look in the major section, they talk about grades, points deducted if you're and a penalty because the code is different from your design. We're not going to do that. You have until midnight tonight to submit the design. You can redo your design and submit it by midnight, and there's no penalty there. You know, the submit system works the same way, right? If you submit a second time, it just overwrites the previous one, and your TA will only see the last one. So if you want to, go ahead and do that by midnight tonight. That's when it closes. But there's no penalty if your code and your design don't match up at this point. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I have a question regarding, like, I guess, further down. Are you going to go to the other parts later?
If you have any questions about the rest of the assignment, let me know now and I'll cover them.
Okay, so in your sample output,
yes,
the way it looked, it was like, the sprint, the fall output, the mean median mode. But in the define calc values functions, it's just to create a list in the order like projects, mean, and use that as an editor, and then put the values at the bottom.
Right. So, my sample output has caused way more confusion than help. The sample output did not have the project mean and the test mean. It just had the overall sum of the class mean. So if it helps, ignore my sample output and I'll try to get another version up.
Okay, so should we also ignore the format?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Oh, one more thing.
Yep.
So when we're creating the file at the end of the project, do you want it to be formatted? Like, I remember you showed us using the semicolons and the EF. I We learned something in class that allows us to format, I guess.
Right. Yeah, the print format, that is entirely up to you.
Okay. Okay.
That you can use that. Now, I would hope you would, because you don't want to put out, the mean to 15 decimal places or whatever the default is, right? On Linux. I don't know. The default is for floating points is like 15 places or something. So
Yeah.
you should use a format to cut it to like 2 decimal places.
But it's not required. But it's
It's not
nice.
required. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. There were other questions?
Yeah, I was having trouble getting the CSV files to download onto the GL server and putting them in the folder that they need to be. Could you go over that again?
Sure. Are you using Mac or Windows?
Windows.
Okay, that's a little harder. I have a Mac, so I can't demonstrate. The first thing you do is you download them from GitHub to your computer. Once you have them on your computer, you have to use a program that implements SCP. SCP is short for Secure Copy. SCP uses is what you use to get the files from your computer to gl.umbc.edu. There are several things you can use that are freely available. One of them I know a couple of your classmates recommend is called WinSCP, Windows Secure Copy, because it has a graphical interface. You just copy and paste the files you want to move onto WinSCP on your computer, and it will, once you type your account ID and password on GL, it will move them for you. If you don't want to use WinSCP, there are a couple of others. I know from watching on Slack, there are a couple of other tools people have recommended. Does anyone else want to recommend an alternative to WinSCP that you like better?
I've found that if you just type into the Windows command on your Windows computer, it works really well too, just using SCP.
SCP, right. I'm going to see if I can share. Go ahead. All right. Well, I'm going to see if I can share this. Sorry, I muted myself. Not good. Okay.
Another quick question.
Sure, go right ahead.
So it appears for all the SCV files that you provided under tests 2 and 3, it looks like all of the scores are out of 200. Do you want us to divide everything by 200 to get them out of 100, or just leave them out of 200?
Just leave them out of 200. I want the raw scores, not the percentages.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint that Project 2 is going to work with these same data sets, and you might be doing things like that in Project 2. So, but for Project 1, just leave them out of 200. Actually, Test 2 is should be out of 125, and the final Test 3 is out of 200. So I'm trying to share a terminal window on my screen right now. Can everyone see that? Just my Mac terminal. Okay, so what you do here is, I would say SCP. Let me make sure that file I want, I think it's fall. I think I put fall 2020.csv here. Spring 2021.csv is here, so I'll move that one up. So it's SCP. Order. We're going to find out if I remember the order. My user ID on GL is my name, Arsenal. And I think I've got to get this order wrong. It's the file name. I'm in the proper directory, so my local file is just spring 2021.csv, Arsenal, etc. And I want it, then it's a colon. And I want it put in my home directory, which is represented by a tilde. The tilde is my home directory, / call it spring 2021.csv. And now if I haven't messed up the command, this should prompt me for my password on, yes, it's now prompting me for my password, which is not going to be echoed. And that has copied Spring 2021 from my laptop, from my Mac, to my home directory on GL. And now I could, you know, move it anywhere I want to on GL, or I could have given it a directory, a path name on the original one. So someone pointed out for Windows, you can also do this in a command line. It's the same commands: scp, file name, your user ID at gl.umbc.edu. The colon right here is important. And then the path where you want it. A tilde is your home directory, and then just put it in my home directory as spring2021.csv. There is a way to do that recursively. It's a -R command that's supposed to transfer all the files at once. A couple of students have had trouble with the recursive command. Sorry, there was somebody in my front yard I had to look at. A number of students have had trouble with recursive, so you may have to move the files up one at a time. This is how I do it in a Mac because it's fairly simple with the command line, but I know students have recommended the graphic interface of WinSCP as well. So hopefully that will help you there. Let's go back to sharing Chrome.
I have another question.
Go right ahead.
So when I was looking through the files you gave us, and I was like writing my code, there was I'm not sure if this is intended or it's actual problem, but the Spring 2022 CSV file, like all the way at the bottom when you open it as a text file, it has like a whole bunch of commas.
Right.
So like when you're running through like your code, there's an error because at the after all the numbers, there are just a whole bunch of commas at the bottom.
Okay, so that tells you what. Remember what you should do in your functions up here is split on a comma. So in other words, you have the when you read in the file, it's a string. You split that string on a comma. When you split on a comma, the split command divides that up and it throws the commas away. So if after you split on a comma, you still have a bunch of commas in your data, then it's not splitting properly. Because there are a lot of commas in the original data. It stems from the fact that was an Excel spreadsheet, and some of the columns were blank.
Okay.
But when you split on a comma, the commas should be thrown away.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We're going to get to the lecture, but this is more important. Like I said.
A quick question.
Yep.
Since the design is due today, does that mean like the project will be due next Wednesday, or is it still due on Monday?
It's still due Monday night at midnight.
Okay.
Do your best because I've got to get Project 2 out there to stay on schedule. They're not extending the semester, so to stay on schedule, I got to get Project 2 out.
No problem. Thank you.
So please try to get it by Monday at midnight. You know, we can talk Monday in class. You can send me messages, get help, whatever. Anything else? Okay, let me show you real quick. YouTube is kind of a pain in the neck, and it turns out my name is less unique than you might think. If you go to YouTube and search for Alfred Arsenal, you might get this guy up in Canada. So keep trying. I posted, I believe, the link to my specific YouTube channel, but this is what you should see on YouTube. You have the videos from last Monday, the 23rd, which is labeled here. You have the which is only 50 minutes long because it was our first time online and we were getting started and I had lots of issues with WebEx. We also have the video from this Monday's class, which is an hour and a quarter long. That's that lecture notes. As I might have mentioned, if you haven't heard, again, when I was editing last Wednesday's lecture file, something happened in WebEx, and so I may not be able to recover that. We may not be able to put Wednesday's lecture up there. but I'm still trying. Tonight's lecture will join these two, because it typically takes WebEx a couple of hours to process it and create the MP4 file. These are all in MP4, if that makes a difference to any of you. A couple of students asked about recording for your own purposes. I do not object if you record these lectures. The only request is that they not be shared widely if you do your own recording. The reason is that I don't understand all this nonsense, but the lectures are a work for hire and thus are the intellectual property of the University System of Maryland, which reserves the right to sell them for a profit at a later date. Blah. So if you want to record it yourself, go ahead. I don't object. Just, use it for your own purposes and then get rid of it. Don't share it widely. I will make the ones available here. All right. So with all that said, last note, Lab 7 is due tomorrow night at midnight, Thursday. When you submit it, the submission command, and here I will, wrong app, sorry. Just a second. Okay, basically I have a blank page in Pages. You should be able to see this. The submission command for the lab, if you have not been able to do it yet, is submit CMSC 201 space lab 7. Now, LAB 7 here has to be capitalized. It is case sensitive. And if you use lowercase letters, it ain't going to work. And then whatever you have called your file, if you call your file lab7.py, which is as the assignment, you would type this string. The only thing to point out is when you are submitting your lab, this lab 7 up here is case sensitive. It must be uppercase or you're going to fail. So that's just the way it was set up. That's the last note. Lab 7 is due tomorrow. Next week, nominally there is no lab, but I'll put out something on there because, again, there's no lab during exam weeks. Okay. With that said, let's get back to the lecture notes. Try not to scare anybody with this one. Test 2 is next Wednesday, the 8th. We will have it. It's out of 125. It's going to be done in the class period. There will be a review sheet posted on the class GitHub site. In the lecture notes, it'll be a review sheet. We will spend next Monday going over the review. If we don't finish dictionaries tonight, I might wrap up Monday with anything you need to know on the test because dictionaries are on the test. But again, take care of that. Don't worry about it. And I'll have more details on how it's going to work. Basically, what it's going to do is when you join class next week at 4 o'clock, I will release the exam at that point. It is open book, open notes. You can use Google. You can you can test code in PyCharm. You can do whatever you want. The only thing that you should not do next Wednesday is collaborate. I can't stop you from texting your friends back and forth behind the scenes going, what did you get for number 6? But I just ask that you not. Anything else is fair game. It's an open book test. You will have to submit it. Details will be provided by 5:30. So you'll have 90 minutes next Wednesday to do the test and submit it to me. I will then grade it and get grades back as quickly as I can. Again, open book, open notes, covers everything through tonight's lecture, through dictionaries. And it's worth 125 points. It's the same format as last time, just a couple of additional questions. And it's structured that, I'm going to find out who understands this. Again, don't be worried about grades. Going back to what I said to start this session, don't be worried about grades. It's learning the material that's more important. I have to test you. I have to get grades, but nobody's going to derive any pleasure from handing somebody a grade that'll harm a scholarship or a grad school application or whatever. And with that, we can start talking about dictionaries. Now, let's see if I can make this a little bit more legible. Oh, that what is a dictionary? Well, if I want to get the definition of a dictionary, I go to dictionary.com and I get the definition of a dictionary. And this is what you see. The key thing we want to talk about is down at the bottom. Number 3, in the context of computers, a list of codes, terms, keys, etc., and their meaning used by a computer program or system. That is exactly what a dictionary is in Python. It's not just meanings. What a dictionary is in Python is a set of values that we associate with a key. Now, what do I mean by key and value? A dictionary, or dict, D-I-C-T for short, is something that is enclosed in curly braces, has a set of keys. These are things we look up in a dictionary. The key is followed by a colon, and then it has a value, separating the pairs by commas. So I have a dictionary that is a key followed by a value, another key followed by a value. Let's talk about a real example, and hopefully this makes sense, because I don't think what I've said so far makes very much sense. I have currently 2 dogs. Well, that's not true. I have 1 dog, and I have my daughter's dog who is staying with us right now. And those dogs, their name are keys. I've also previously had a couple of other dogs, and so I can add them to my dictionary. My dictionary is dogs. Okay, each dog has a name, and each dog is of a certain breed or combination of breed. They're mostly mixed. I generally don't have purebred dogs. Okay, my dog, currently the dog that's really mine, who's actually snoring over in the corner right now, is named Doug. You think Doug because my daughter loved the movie Up, if you're familiar with it. My Doug is a combination of Beagle and Bulldog. So the key in my dictionary is Doug. That's his name. And my value is the list of Beagle and Bulldog, because that's what type of dog he is. So key, the string Doug. Value, the breeds he is, the list Beagle and Bulldog, because that's what he is. So that's the first entry in my dictionary. It has a key, the dog's name, and it has a value, the dog's breed. There's 2 of them. Now, the next dog in my dictionary is my daughter's dog, who is staying with us. Her name is Lizzie. That's the key, Lizzie. Now, her breed is, she is what's called an Australian cattle dog, or a blue heeler. Look them up on in an encyclopedia. They come in red or blue. She's the red kind. So the key is Lizzie, and Lizzie has value Australian cattle dog. Now note that Doug had a value that was a list of 2 things, because he's really a mutt. He's really a mix of 2 things. Lizzie only has 1 value, the string Australian cattle dog, because while she's not purebred, she's mostly ACD. In the past, I've had another dog, Penny. That's the key. That was her name. Penny was a spaniel, and that is a typo. There are supposed to be quotes around the word spaniel. Apologies for that. If you're wondering why there are no quotes, that's an error on my part. The actual code in the coding file that's on PyCharm, I have those quotes there. Penny was a spaniel. I had another dog in the past, long ago, Bonnie. Bonnie was a beagle. And another dog, Remy. Remy was a shepherd. So this is a dictionary. It is called dogs. It begins with the curly braces, the curly brackets, and ends with the curly bracket. It has a set of keys. The keys are the strings that represent the names of the dogs. So the keys in my dictionary are Doug, Lizzie, Penny, Bonnie, and Remy. The values are the strings that represent the breed of the dog. Doug has a list because he's a mix, Beagle and Bulldog. The others each have a string as their type, Australian cattle dog, Spaniel, Beagle, and Shepherd. Now, let's real quick Go over to PyCharm.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Okay, so for the first string dog,
Yes.
the values were in a list, but for
Yes.
the rest, since it was just one value, is that why it's not in a list?
That's correct. It's not a
Okay.
list. I mean, I could have made it a list of one value. So I'm sharing PyCharm now. Here you can see the code where Lizzie is an Australian catalog. I could have made that a list that was exactly one element long, but I wanted to show you that I can have different type values, so I just declared it a string. So yes, this is Doug it has a list. Lizzie has a string. I certainly could have made Lizzie's value a string of one element, but I wanted to show you that they can be different types, that I can have different type values in the same dictionary. So that's why I did it that way.
So for dog, even though there are two values, can we not like use a list? Can we just have the strings, or we have to use a list?
I would have had to concatenate the string. So in other words, that's different. If I had done this, so let's create a dictionary from the beginning, and this is just going to have one element, curly braces, the string Doug, colon. If I had said beagle concatenated with bulldog, that would have been different. Now, what would have happened if I wanted to see the value here, I would say dogs sub Doug, and it would ask me, show you what the value is. And you can see that by concatenating the two strings, he's Beagle Bulldog. He's not the list. So I could have done that, but it would have been a different representation. It might have been a different meaning. So that's why I did it the way I did it. Okay. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Quick question.
Certainly.
So basically, you can sort of think of it as a list where the key is just the element number and the actual element is the value to that.
Right, except for one thing, and it's a great lead in because you're jumping about 8 slides ahead. Dictionaries do not have element numbers, they have element names. So in other words, there's no such, we're in a list. If dogs was a list, I would have dogs sub-zero or dogs sub-zero sub-zero. There's no notion of the first element in a dictionary. There's just the name. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is and I'll stay on PyCharm then, is the way I reference an element in the dictionary is not by its number, but by its name. So specifically, let me load in my full dictionary, my full definition of dogs. And now, just to show you what it looks like, that's what a dictionary looks like when you print it out. It shows you the square brackets, the curly brackets rather, the key, colon, value list, comma, next key. If I want to reference an element, I do that by putting the key in square brackets. If I tried to say dogs sub-zero, it's going to come back with an error because it doesn't know what 0 is. There's no number.
Quick
Yes,
question. I'm not sure if I missed it, but why do you have square brackets around Beagle and Bulldog, but not around Australian Cattle and further down the line?
Right, because this value is a list.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And this value is a string. And I did that purposely to show you that you can have different types of values in the same dictionary. Not all values have to be the same type. And so I could have put square brackets around Australian cattle dog and made this a list which just has one element in it, and that would have been perfectly valid. And I could have done that. I chose not to because, as I said, I wanted to show you that I can have a dictionary where this value is a list and this value is a string, and that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. The syntax here gets bizarre, right? Because, well, you know, we're looking at curly braces to say a dictionary, and the square brackets inside indicate a list. But now I specify a key in a dictionary when I'm looking at it with square brackets. So in other words, if I want to look at what's the value of here's a key, Doug, what's the value associated with Doug? The way I do that is I have the variable name, right? The variable of type dictionary, sub Doug. Now, why do I use square brackets there? Because that's the Python syntax. Why did the Python syntax say that has to be square brackets? I have no clue. It's confusing as heck. All I can do is tell you, this is the syntax. If I want to look at an element in the dictionary, I do it by saying variable name, dictionary name, right? And then the key in square brackets. And if I do that, that will give me the associated value, and the value is this list, Beagle and Bulldog. Whereas dogs of the key Lizzie, I get back the string Australian cattle dog. Okay. So what I'm doing here is referencing an individual element in the dictionary by saying dogs, key. Dogs, square brackets, key, and that gives me the value. And then I can use it in a, in code. I could say if dogs sub penny equals spaniel print she got her name because she was copper colored. Right now I can execute code. And if I execute that, yes, Penny's name is equal to Spaniel right now. So that was, we'll do something. You can use that reference in code. Variable name, dictionary name, key in square brackets. I don't have this in the slides, but you cannot reference a dictionary entry by its value. There is no way. Let's pick Spaniel again because it's shorter. Let's pick on Remy and go with a shepherd, right? Remy was a shepherd. I can say dogs sub Remy, and it tells me he was a shepherd. There is no way I can look at a dictionary and find all the elements whose value is shepherd. You cannot do that reverse lookup. And if you think about it, here's how to understand. Suppose I have a paper dictionary, a book, a dead tree. I have the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the American Heritage Dictionary, or whatever. If I ask you for the definition of square, you know how to go into the dictionary, how to open to the right page and read the definition of square. If I tell you that there is some term whose definition is in plane geometry a four-sided figure where all four sides are of equal length and all four sides are joined at right angles. That's one definition of a square, right? You cannot go through the dictionary given that definition and find the right term. I mean, you potentially could, but you'd have to look up every single term in the dictionary before you eventually got to the SQs. So just as you don't go into the paper dictionary with the definition in mind and find the term that has that definition, in Python dictionaries, you do not start with a value and then go find the key that matches. It is not supported in the language. You cannot start with a value and find a matching key. You can only start with a key. Okay. So I don't think I have that in the slides, but that's one factor of dictionaries. You can look at the key and get a value. You can't get a value and look at a key, find a key. And again, this is unordered. You can't start by where it is in the dictionary. All right. Let me get back to Chrome. I hope I haven't killed the whole thing. Let's see. Let me get to where I'm sharing. All right. What did they do to Chrome?
Excuse me, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Does that mean that if you have more than one value for a key, it has to be in square brackets?
Yes, it had. Well, yes.
Okay.
Curly brackets. So in other words, if a key is associated with more than one value, it has to be a list or another dictionary. You can have a dictionary that's a value in its own dictionary. We're not going to go into that. But yes, the answer to your question is if you're going to have a key that maps to more than one value, it's got to be a list or a dictionary. Okay. I appear to have messed myself up again, so let's go back to today's lecture slides. Cover. Okay. Now, the rules for keys and values. Keys have to be unique and they have to be immutable types. Okay. So I can only have a key appear once. I can't say Doug is a beagle and then Doug is a bulldog as a dictionary. That's not permitted. That's getting back to the question that was just asked. Yachendu, I believe, asked a question. It has to be the key appearing once, Doug, and then a list so I can get both beagle and bulldog. I cannot list Doug as a beagle and then Doug as a bulldog in the same dictionary. It's not permitted. So that's why we put those two values in the list. So that's what I mean about keys being unique. Keys being immutable, they can be ints, floats, booleans, or strings. I can have ints, floats, and booleans in the same as keys in the same dictionary. The example we're talking about, dogs, all my keys are strings. I could have keys or ints or whatever, but they must be immutable types. I cannot have a list as a key, and I cannot have another dictionary as a key. Keys have to be unique, and they have to be immutable. Values can be anything. There are no practical restrictions on what a value. You can be mutable types, you can be immutable types, they can be lists, they can be dictionaries, they can be floats, they can be strings, they can be whatever. And values can be repeated. Okay, a long time ago, we had two beagles, a male named Baron and a female named Cleo. Okay, so I would enter them in a dictionary like old dogs, Baron is a beagle, Cleo is a beagle. And if you'll notice in this dictionary, I have two different values. I have two values that are the same, right? Because Baron and Cleo were both beagles. So the key Baron has value beagle and the key Cleo has value beagle. Values can be repeated. Values do not have to be unique. Values do not have to be immutable. Values can be anything you flippin' want them to be, as long as it's valid syntactic Python. There's no restrictions. Keys have to be unique and immutable, and that's what you got to remember. You create an empty dictionary the same way you create an empty list, except that instead of square brackets, it's curly braces. If I wanted to create an empty dictionary of cats, because I don't have any cats right now, cats equals empty curly braces, and now I have a new dictionary which just has no content because I don't have any cats. I don't have anything against cats, but my dogs do have something against cats, so that's why I don't have cats. If I wanted to create a dictionary with content, well, the way I created the dogs dictionary is one example of this. I said dogs equals whatever. Here's another example. Suppose I wanted to list the governors of a number of states. Okay, in this case, the key is the name of the state. The value is the name of the governor. So I would create a new variable, governors. Governors equals, because it's curly brackets, is the dictionary. My first key is Maryland, colon, the value is Hogan. The next, then a comma, the next key is Virginia. The governor of Virginia is Ralph Northam. That's the value. The next key is Louisiana. The governor of Louisiana is John Bell Edwards, and so on. So I create a dictionary with content already in it by saying key, colon, value, comma, key, colon, value, comma, key, colon, value. So just like we can create lists already having content or empty, I can create dictionaries the same way. This is the thing I've been making, and thanks for the questions because it's a great lead-in. Dictionaries are unordered. Each list element has an index, and you know where the value is in the list by that index. Student sub 0, student sub 1. With apologies, that would be Lizzie. Student sub length of student minus 1 is the last element in the list, right? So list elements are in a list in a specific location, in a specific place that is determined by its subscript, its index. Dictionaries don't work that way. There's no first element in a dictionary. There's no first key. There's no first value. You can't tell where an element is. In the example in PyCharm, which we'll go back to in a minute, I tried to say, well, give me dictionary sub-zero, dog sub-zero. Give me the first element in the dictionary. Doesn't work. It's undefined. You'll get an error if you try to reference it. Dictionaries are unordered. It's a different structure. Okay. We talked about how you access. Now, let's go back to PyCharm. Let's get you out of the way. Suppose I try to access a dog that's not there, a key that's not in my dictionary. A long time ago, I apparently had a dog named Pepper because he's in pictures and I have no clue what kind of dog he is. But let's look him up just in case. What's the value for the key dogs sub Pepper? Oops, that is a syntax error, because if there is no key, if I give a key that doesn't exist, like the string pepper, then that is an error and my program will terminate. It says invalid. Oops, actually, I'm lying. I made a mistake there. Let me give you the real right error. This should not have been curly braces. This should have been square brackets. This is actually the syntax error in the previous mistake is because I use curly braces rather than square brackets. That's the invalid syntax. Here is the right error message, that there is no key named Pepper, so therefore your program doesn't run. So you can access an element in the dictionary by saying variable sub key, but if that key doesn't exist, then you get an error. There is a way to work around that, and we'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to get to one thing I skipped. If I want to add an element to there are a couple of ways to add elements to a dictionary, since it's showing right here. One is just to make an assignment. Now let's look at what the contents of dogs are. Right now, dogs is a dictionary that has keys Doug, Lizzie, Penny, Bonnie, and Remy. That's my dictionary right now. If I want to add an element to it, I just have to define a key and a value. So, dogs, Cinder. We had Cinder back a while ago. Cinder was a Doberman Pinscher. She was black, which is why she was called Cinder. I just gave that assignment statement. The impact of that is to add that element, Cinder as the key, Doberman as the value, into my dictionary. So one way to add an element to a dictionary is to just make an assignment. Dogs of key Cinder has value Doberman is now added to my dictionary. Okay. With a list, remember, we had append, which puts it at the last element of the list, or we had insert, which put it in the list in a specific place. That's not meaningful in dictionaries. There's no such thing as inserting at the end of the dictionary or inserting in a specific place in the dictionary because the dictionary is unordered. So adding an element to the dictionary, it just goes wherever. It happened to, in this case, print out as the last element. Some other implementation of Python may print it out as the first element. It doesn't matter. You can insert it, it inserts it wherever it wants. Now, we've talked about, I'm sorry, go ahead. Question?
If you wanted to add, I guess, another value to an already existing key, would you do it the exact same way?
That is a wonderful question. And let me show you right now. Suppose that I decided Penny is a spaniel, but that's not descriptive enough because there's Springer Spaniels, there's King Charles Spaniels, there's Cocker Spaniels. Penny was a Cocker Spaniel. So now, suppose what I wanted to do is say dogs sub Penny equals the string Cocker Spaniel. And now, if I look at it, it has overwritten Spaniel, and it is replaced with Cocker Spaniel. So the answer to your question is yes. If I wanted to change the value of an existing key, I just use that assignment statement, and it overwrites the previous value with the new value. So saying Cocker Spaniel overwrote the existing value of just plain Spaniel and inserted Cocker Spaniel with it.
So you can't add another value to the list, like in addition to Spaniel. If you wanted to add like Spaniel and Cocker Spaniel.
The answer is yes, but I'm going to have to change something, okay? Because remember, right now it's a string. A string can't hold two values, so I would have to create it. I would have to make it be a list. So if I said this, dog sub Penny is now going to be the list of Spaniel, Cocker Spaniel. That works. And you noticed that now the value of Penny is now a list. So the answer to your question is yes, I can do that assignment if I want to add a second element. But I have to change a string into a list in this particular case. The general answer to your question is yes, that works. But I may have to change the type of the variable. Now, Doug is already a list. Suppose that somebody tells me I'm out at the park walking my dog, and somebody tells me that dog's not a Beagle Bulldog. He's got some boxer in him too. Now I just add an element to the list. That works, right? I had a list with 2 elements. Now I have an list of 3 elements. So the general answer to your question is yes. If I want to change the value from one to another, or if I want to add a value that's the same as changing it, I may have to change types. I may have to change from a string to a list. I may have to change from an int to a list. But I can do it. It does replace it. That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next code up in the coding file for today prints out the value, shows how to access an element by the key. We've already talked about how we would do this. You have the code if you want to see it yourself. What happens if you access a key that doesn't exist? Dogs of pepper, we've shown that. That's an error. So let's look at another way of getting it. Rather than just saying dogs of pepper, there is a method defined for dictionaries in Python called get. And I can use the get method. And if I do that, I'm going to leave out the print statement just because it's a bit easier. It's exactly the same thing. Now, just to confuse you more, and this is why next week's test is open. If I use the get method, I don't use square brackets. I use parentheses. So variable dictionary name dogs dot the get method, and then in parentheses the key is Doug. Dogs dot get of Doug, and it's the same thing. It accesses the values, and I'd added Boxer, so now Doug is the list of 3 elements: Beagle, Bulldog, and Boxer. Okay, so get method is the same way of accessing a value based on a key as before. But now, what happens if I use a key that doesn't exist? Poor pepper is still not in my dictionary. What happens if I say dogs.get pepper, a key that doesn't exist? I need to print this out to demonstrate it. Okay. Print dogs.get of pepper. And now we remember the value none, the special value none, which is of type none type. If you use the get method with a key and the key is not found, pepper does not exist in my dictionary, the get method returns the special value none. It's not a string, it's not a Boolean, it's of type none type, but it returns none. But it doesn't error out. Right? Remember when I used this, wherever it was, when I used the assignment, dogs of pepper, and pepper didn't exist, my program terminates. My program is over because that's an error and I can't handle an error. Well, we need to start being able to handle errors in our program. And so get handles.
Quick question.
Yes, go right ahead.
So what's the difference between .get and just doing dogs square bracket pepper?
The answer is the only difference is when there is an error, when the key doesn't exist. Dogs.get, like here, of pepper, if pepper doesn't exist, it returns none, or it could return something else. Whereas dogs of square bracket pepper, in this case, is going to error out. If the key exists, if I'd said Doug or Lizzie, there would be exactly no difference. It would work the same way. Where they are different is if there's an error, if this value does not exist. This returns none. I can continue to run my program. This returns an error. My program terminates and it's dead. Okay? That's the difference, is what happens when there's an error. I can handle it. Now, I can go even further. The default behavior is if I use get and the key is not found, it returns none. If I modify, if I add to .get a second value after a comma, so I want to search for key pepper, after the comma, the second value is what am I going to return in case of an error? So this gives me a chance to not just return none, but return a specific value if there's an error. So here's a case where we have get, we have a key that's not found, and I'm going to return a specific error condition. So in this case, you can see that pepper doesn't exist. So instead of returning none, it returns key not found. Now, again, if the key is found, we'll go pick on Remy. Remy is going to be found. The what to do in case of an error doesn't matter. There was no error. I had instructions in there that said, if there was an error, you should do this. Well, there wasn't an error, so it worked fine. So the answer to your question, the general answer to your question in all cases is, if the key is found in the dictionary, there is no difference between .get and just putting it in square brackets. They are identical if the key is found. The difference is if there's an error, if the key doesn't exist. If the key doesn't exist, then .get lets you decide how to return from that case and how to move on. And in this example, I just printed key not found. I could return an error code. In this case, I have the same thing. Instead of returning a string that I've been printed out, I'm going to return a condition of -1. Here, I had an error of -1. The difference is .get is robust against errors. It's resilient against errors. It doesn't terminate my program. Okay? Any other questions? I'm down to about 4 minutes, so I'm going to cover one more topic, and then we'll stop, and then we'll pick up Monday. Won't take long. You'll have all the slides and coding, etc., to work with before then if you want, although I suspect you'll be busy with your homework and with your lab and program, so you won't worry about this until Monday. That's fine. I'll cover the rest of this on Monday, and we'll talk about what you're expected to know on a test. We've talked about how you added an element to the dictionary. You added an element to the dictionary with an assignment. .get does not let you add an element to the dictionary. You can only add an element to the dictionary with the assignment, the square brackets. If you want to remove it, there's two ways. The first is the reserve statement del, D-E-L, short for delete, del, dogs of Cinder. Okay, Cinder was the Doberman I added to my dictionary later on. So now I'm going to delete poor Cinder. And now if I look at dogs, well, Cinder is gone. She's no longer in the dictionary. So that is the easy way to remove an element from the dictionary, is to just delete the element. Del, dogs of Cinder, square bracket, it's the key. Not the value, it's the key. But what happens if I try to delete a key that's not in the dictionary? Okay. Lady was my brother's dog. She was not my dog. So I want to remove Lady from the dictionary. Well, Lady's not in the dictionary. So once again, my program crashes. My program terminates because of an error. So if I want an equivalent way that's robust against errors, the way I do that is a function called pop. Okay. There's no remove. There's like there is in list. Lists you have pop and remove. With dictionaries, there's only pop. If I say dogs.pop of Lady, because she wasn't mine, she was my brother's, that also is an error, but I can handle it. And the way I handle it is by after the key, I put a comma and I say, what do I want to return? What do I want to do if this key is not in the dictionary? In this case, if this key is not in the dictionary, I want to return the value -1. And so I return the value -1. So again, the simple way to delete an item from the dictionary is with del dictionary, square brackets, key. But if that key is not in the dictionary, your program crashes. Your program terminates. So the way I provide some resilience against that is I use the pop method. Pop, key, comma, and then what I want to happen if it's not, that key is not in the dictionary. Now, if this key is in the dictionary, this error statement or this error code is never going to be found, right? That's just what to do in case of an error, and that's an error. So that's it for tonight. That's all we have time for. If there's any questions, I will try to respond to them. And otherwise, I'll be available online. I'll be monitoring Slack. I may be on Discord as well. Again, if you did not get a Discord invite, let me know, and I will forward you once you can get on for office hours. If you feel you need more intensive tutoring, please do not hesitate to contact the Academic Success Center. That's what they're there for. Okay. Anything else? Any questions?
Quick question. Could you demonstrate how to append a value to the dictionary again?
Okay. You cannot append. You can only insert, and that's by the assignment. Okay. Because it's unordered, appending would be adding to the end, and that's an undefined term. So you cannot append. The only way to add an item to the dictionary is by doing this. Make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. The only way to add an element to the dictionary is with this assignment statement up here. So this is it. That's all I got. Okay. Any other questions? All right. We will pick this up on Monday. Please try not to stress out about your grades. Do the best on the assignments. I don't want you to goof off. I don't want to, we're not giving anything away free. I want you to work at it. But please do not stress about the grades. Please take care of yourself first and foremost. And please get the best you can do. And other than that, I will talk to you later. Recording ended.